Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're back once again with Boombuster Believable, where we're continuing to work our way through the Big Ten, breaking down the men's basketball teams and their outlook for the rest of the season. Next up, preseason number 9, the Wisconsin Badgers. So Wisconsin currently sits at 16 and 11 and 8 and 9 in the conference, which is good for tied for 10th with Penn State. They definitely had a lot of ups and downs, as a lot of Big Ten teams have had this season, but their second half of the year has been pretty excruciatingly rough for them. But taking a look at some of their key players, you start off with Chucky Hepburn, a returning guard, scoring 12.4 points, 3.0 rebounds, and 2.9 assists per game, as well as getting 1.6 steals per game and shooting 43.5% from three. Connor Essegian has been a big freshman for them at 11.7 points, 3.5 rebounds per game, and 86.4% from the free throw line, as well as shooting 39.7% from three. Stephen Crowell is one of their two main forwards at 11.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, and 2.7 assists per game. And then Tyler Wall is a name that a lot of Badger fans know and love at 11.3 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.5 assists per game, as well as adding 1.1 steals per game in there. So they have very balanced scoring between those four guys that all average over 11 points per game. But outside of them, things get a little bit rough in terms of some of the numbers there. But taking a look at the KenPom rankings, their adjusted offensive efficiency is 163rd. So despite seeing those four guys at over 11 points per game, the rest of the team is just simply not really putting it up there, and they're not a whole lot efficient despite putting up those numbers. But their adjusted defensive efficiency sits at 20th. So they have a great defense. It's just whether or not that they're shooting well on any given night, whether or not they can beat some of the better teams in the Big Ten. And that rounds out for an adjusted efficiency margin of 64th, and their adjusted tempo sits at 352nd. So they are not a running team. They will try to get it into Crowell and Wall, as well as kickouts to their shooters, but they're not a team that really likes getting running very much. But their strength of schedule sits at 12th. So I mean, you can see where a little bit why they've got these 11 losses and 9 of them coming in conference. And obviously the Big Ten has been pretty tough this year in terms of pretty much anybody can beat anybody on any given day. But that heads into some of the key wins and losses. Earlier on in the season, back in November, they had a loss at home against Wake Forest, 78-75. Not a fantastic one, but a lot of things can happen early on in the season. But they followed that up with a win against Maryland, 64-59 on December 6th, which was a very good win for them. Maryland was playing very good basketball in the beginning of the season, so that solidified them as one of the better teams in the conference at that point. Later on, as we head towards a lot more recently, they had a win at Penn State, who has been playing very well in the second half of the year, 79-74 in overtime on February 8th. But the problem was they followed that up with a loss at Nebraska, 73-63 in overtime on February 11th. So they were able to get it to overtime, but then they just got absolutely blitzed and just couldn't really get anything to fall. But the Badgers are once again a team that has not had the success that they thought they would since the second half of conference play has started at the start of the new year. Leaving 2022, Wisconsin had a record of 10-2 and 2-0 in the Big Ten. But since then, they're 6-9 with a pair of 3-game losing streaks in that span. Their offensive efficiency is just not where they'd like it to be, clearly shown by that 163rd ranking. We talked about the points per game averages of their top 4 players early in the episode, and as we said, they have very balanced scoring. But all of those scorers score over 11 points per game, but none of them score over 13 points per game. So you never really know who's going to be the top scorer for them on any given night, and that can work against you as a team. Sometimes down the stretch in those close games, you really want a clear number one scorer that you can give the ball to and trust them to go get a bucket in crunch time. But their last 4 regular season games, as well as the Big Ten tournament, are going to be very big for them, since Joe Lunardi currently has them as one of the last 4 in the NCAA tournament. But they have a chance to add some statement wins before Selection Sunday and before the Big Ten tournament, with games at Michigan on Sunday, as well as Purdue coming up to Madison in the beginning of March. But that's all we've got for today. It's crunch time, and I'm trying to get through the last of these Big Ten teams, so expect to see more of these real soon before we get into some of the conference breakdowns ahead of the respective conference tournaments. But here on the channel, we have tons of other content from the NFL season, other college basketball videos, and plenty other Big Ten breakdowns, including one by Drew himself, and so much more planned for the crazy month and a half ahead of us. But if you want more from us, check out our other videos, like and subscribe, and until next time, peace.